All right, Scout, we are more than halfway through the season. Can you finally admit that your awful take that the Celtics don't need a primary playmaker was indeed awful? That they would be much better off if they had a pure point guard?
Much better off? You think they'll be much better off? No, I'm not. I'm not going there, and not yet. I think Smart is good. I think you just got to demand him to be more of a playmaker. And I, in the media, am the one guy that puts all the responsibility on the best players. I know it's crazy. We should be arguing over the 10th and 11th man, but I just feel like the players who make the most impact are the ones that we should talk about how they can improve the team. Crazy.
All right, Scout, Anthony Davis is back in the lineup after a 17-game absence with a knee injury. The Lakers won their first game with AD back, beating an undermanned Nets team. Now comes the teeth of the schedule. I'll ask you this. The Lakers, can Anthony Davis save them?
No way. They got bigger problems than Anthony Davis coming back and, still missing probably 10 games throughout this season. I know they'll be a little bit better defensively, but it's not that the rim protection is bad when AD is there. They don't guard the ball. And you're asking AD to do too much defensively. They'll be better. Like, they'll be a better basketball team with Anthony Davis than without him. But the record, it won't save the Lakers. There's no way they're anywhere close to Golden State, Phoenix, Memphis, or even Utah in a playoff series. All four of those teams will beat the Lakers now, next year, whenever it comes. The Lakers are not as good as those four teams.
Look, you can see the impact that Davis has on the rotations, at least. I mean, in that game against Brooklyn, the Lakers went without a true center. DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard stayed staples of the bench. I think that's how it's going to be for the rest of the season. They're a better team defensively, as you said, with Anthony Davis in the lineup. But we kind of got a bit of a sample size of what the Davis, LeBron, Russ Lakers looked like before the injury to AD. They were 16-14 in the first 30 games of the season. Davis, Russ, and LeBron played like 16, 17 games of that together, and they were just kind of okay with that group. So I can buy that AD will push them maybe into the middle of the playoff pack, but I'm with you. Once they get into a series with one of those top 3 or 4 teams, they're just not going to win it. Not the team I've seen for the first half of the season.
The Lakers are going to benefit, and they're going to get wins against those bad teams. There's a lot of bad teams in the NBA. But anytime they're playing a legit team healthy, they got no chance of beating those types of teams.
It wasn't too long ago we were talking about the Wizards as one of those feel-good stories in the NBA. They got off to a 10-3 start. We were starting to wonder, could they be middle-of-the-pack playoff contenders? And since then, they have completely bottomed out, with the bottom coming an unbelievably bad loss to the LA Clippers earlier this week when they gave up a 35-point lead. Just remarkable at the way the Wizards collapsed in that game. So now the question is, as we approach the February 10th trade deadline, should the Wizards start to seriously consider moving Bradley Beal?
Yeah, did you see how good Kawhi Leonard and Paul George were during that comeback? They were amazing. It was absolutely insane how it was Luke Kennard out there doing his thing. So yeah, you know what? The Wizards are a disconnected team. They don't guard anymore. When Wes Unseld Jr. got there, those guys were playing hard. They were defending. And it was like, oh, yeah, we're going to shock the world. And then all of a sudden, they all revert back to who they are, and which is not very good defensive teams. That guy's willing to run through walls and do whatever it takes to win. And now we got a disinterested group, 29th in the NBA in defensive rating, and they just don't care anymore. So I said last summer, and there was a point in which I admitted I might have been wrong about the Wizards. I said last summer, I don't know why they kept Bradley Beal. They should have danced with the Warriors. You see the year that Wiggins is having this year. Maybe you could have got Wiseman as well, and the Kuminga pick. They probably should have made that move. Now, I guess you should make a move, but the value of Bradley Beal has plummeted. What are they going to do? They're not going to get a top 5 pick for a guy like Bradley Beal at this point. So I don't know what to do. I think I would mix it up just because the team doesn't seem to be going anywhere, but they really missed their opportunity last summer.
Yeah, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to give Bradley Beal a long-term contract this summer, if he even wants it. And Beal's got to be looking at this team going, do I really want to attach myself to this group for the next 4 or 5 years? It's problematic, certainly for him. So if I'm the Wizards and there is a deal on the table that might get me, say, Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody out of Golden State, and I'd even consider a swap that involves Ben Simmons because, look, Simmons at his age, 25 years old, 3 years left on his contract, that makes more sense with the timeline that this team is currently on. But I honestly think it's crazy at this point if you hold on to Bradley Beal through the deadline and run the risk that he might walk as a free agent.
Yeah, I think the Ben Simmons trade is something that, like, I know there's a lot of smoke around James Harden, maybe even Damian Lillard. But if I was the 76ers, I would do the Brad Beal trade because I know it's going to make me better for this year. And I think Brad Beal would fit in with Embiid. So, but that's now you're building, you really did miss a golden opportunity this past summer, but now you could build through Simmons and Simmons could make the players around him better. So I guess I would do that move. But outside of that, looks like Washington, which I praised them when they started this season and they were playing connected and good basketball. I praised how good they were, and I praised Tommy Shepard for not moving on Beal and for like really making him relevant right now. But everyone settles into eventually during an 82 game season, and they're a team, and Brad Beal's a team that's just like a nothing. And I don't know if they're going to make any type of noise. So you're probably you're probably right. They probably got to make some type of move just to try to mix it up and maybe possible get a lottery pick.
Well, it's got a lot of smoke around James Harden right now and his future in Brooklyn. The Nets reportedly not looking to deal James Harden before the February 10th trade deadline. No surprise there, but there's no guarantee that James Harden will be back in Brooklyn next year as Harden is set to become an unrestricted free agent this summer. So there are two teams right now that seem like frontrunners for Harden. It's a return to the Nets and maybe a return to play for his old boss in Houston, Daryl Morey in the Philadelphia 76ers. So I'll ask you this. What is the best long-term fit for James Harden? Alongside Kevin Durant in Brooklyn or alongside Joel Embiid in Philadelphia?
I really feel like both of them will be fine for James Harden. Like if you're asking me if they made that swap and Simmons and Simmons and Maxey are on the Nets, and I don't know, like I don't know what team would be better. It kind of matters about the supplementary pieces, but I feel like Harden would be good on Brooklyn. I think Harden is going to be good throughout the playoffs. I don't love Brooklyn this year as much as I thought they were going to be really good last year. I don't think they're physical enough to beat the Bucks. I don't even know if they're physical enough to beat Joel Embiid, to be honest with you, in a playoff series. But I will say this, by waiting until the offseason, I really feel like the Nets could trade him, like sign and trade him and still get that same team. And then one thing, if you don't do it now, it pretty much, in my opinion, crosses Philly off the list. Like if Philly doesn't do anything with Ben Simmons and they go into the playoffs with what they currently have, like they're not going to beat the Brooklyn Nets. But if you made that swap and Simmons comes over, like there is a chance that Harden could do really well with Joel Embiid. And now all of a sudden the Nets not only have to worry about the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks, but they'd have to also worry about the Philadelphia 76ers. So to me, I think he could go, it'll be fine either way.
Well, I think there are a couple of variables to any Harden decision moving forward. One is, what exactly is the status of Kyrie Irving? Like, is Kyrie Irving moving forward, if it's in Brooklyn, going to be a full-time player? Is he going to be able to play all 82 games because he's vaccinated or because New York lifted the mandate, or is he going to be a part-time player? It did not surprise me, Scal, to read the report that said James Harden was frustrated by Kyrie Irving, because I believe every player on that roster is frustrated with Kyrie Irving and his decision not to get vaccinated and not to be able to play for that team during the season and potentially not be able to play in the playoffs. So I think whatever the status of Kyrie is come July is going to be a factor in Harden's decision. And the other part of it is, how much can you really trust the long-term health of Joel Embiid? Now, he has had a season and a half of monster numbers. Last season, in the games he played in, he played at MVP level. This year, as we tape this, he might be the front runner for MVP, or at least one of the top three guys in that discussion. But he does have a history of injuries. And even though he's younger than Kevin Durant, you might be able to trust Durant more to stay on the floor for the next 3 or 4 years than you would be able to trust Joel Embiid. So I'm not even looking at who's the best fit right now, because I think there are too many outside variables that James Harden would have to consider before making any decision like that.
Let me ask you, like, I think we're both saying the same thing. No matter what you go with, both teams are going to be good and they're going to be championship level. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, forget Kyrie and all that. Like, what do you think James Harden wants to, like, does he want to live in Philly? Does he want to be the guy that has the ball in his hands every single possession? And if he wants to dump it into Embiid, then that's fine. Or do you think he likes playing off the ball and playing like kind of third fiddle with Kyrie and KD? Let's just assume Kyrie's going to be back, and we're assuming that both teams are going to be really good somewhere in the future. Daryl Morey's going to figure out how to make Philadelphia good. What do you think James Harden wants to play like?
I would say more like the playmaker. That's more of an educated guess on my part. But look, James Harden has had the experience of being the ball dominant guy. He had it for what, 7 years with the Houston Rockets. And what did it get him? It got him one trip to the conference finals. I think this stage of Harden's career in his early 30s, I think there is a part of him that embraces being more of a playmaker and not having to assume the burden all by himself. I mean, Harden played well in that Lakers game on Tuesday, Scal, but kind of looking at his body language throughout that game, it looked like he was just kind of frustrated that he was having to do it all by himself. I don't think James Harden wants to go back to that. Now, as you said, with both teams, he would be, the number 2 option, at least with Embiid and with Kevin Durant. But I think in Brooklyn, with Kyrie there, it does allow him to be a little more playmaker than offensive hub like he would be in Philly.
Yeah, and I think this is just me guessing. I think he wants to run the show. I think he wants to be, I'm James Harden, put the ball in my hand. If I want to give Embiid a little pick and pop, I'm going to do it. If I want to hit Embiid on the post, I'm going to do it. I'm going to initiate everything. So I actually feel that he'll be happier with cheesesteaks down in Philadelphia with the ball in his hands and his ability to sort of dictate the offense. And I do think that he's better at that now than he was at Houston and more mature at that. So it's not about, I want to score 40, but I think now he's about like, I want to run this show. And you have to admit, he is the best point guard that Brooklyn has. And Kyrie does take possessions away from him, and so does KD. So and this is like 55-45. I feel like he'll be a little bit happier down in Philly, being able to be the guy where he makes all the decisions.